Welcome to another episode, everyone. A Louisiana man shot and killed his wife and 8 children. He went off of the deep end. Apparently, 7 of these children were his. I suppose one was not his child, and he just lost it. Gun control is out of control in this country, and we need to get a handle on it, not to blame guns. It's the people behind the guns, of course. This individual clearly had a lot of problems, is faced with all sorts of demons to unalive and delete 8 children, all ages 14 and under. Let's get into it. Rest in peace to those individuals and the family.
This is entirely a domestic incident. So the suspect shot the mother of the child children first, then responded to this location and shot 8 children, 7 of which being his own.
To a heartbreaking and horrific mass shooting in Shreveport, Louisiana. 8 children between the ages of 1 and 14 were killed in what police are calling a gruesome crime scene.
Sunday morning in Shreveport, Louisiana. The sun hadn't come up yet. Most of the Cedar Grove neighborhood was still sleeping. Porch lights on, dogs quiet. A normal weekend, about to turn into the worst day this city has ever lived through. Inside one small house on West 79th Street, 7 little bodies were lying where they'd been all night, tucked into beds, pressed up against cousins and siblings, some still holding on to stuffed animals. None of them were going to wake up. An 8th child, a little boy, tried to make it out. He climbed up on the roof. Whoever put him up there, or whoever he followed up there, thought maybe up high meant safe. It didn't. He got shot on that roof, and his body stayed there until police found him. The oldest was 11, the youngest was 3. And the man who pulled the trigger wasn't some stranger who broke in. He wasn't a burglar. He wasn't a neighbor with a grudge. He was their daddy. 7 of those babies called him Daddy. The 8th was blood too, a cousin, family. Before that morning was over, he'd be dead himself, shot down in another parish after carjacking a stranger and leading police on a chase. His wife would be in a hospital bed with a bullet in her face. His girlfriend would be fighting for her life in the ICU. This is the story of April 19th, 2026. This is the Shreveport tragedy. And we need to talk about how it got to this.
Yeah, let's talk about how it got to this. This is nasty. This is nasty work. So April 19th, 2 days ago, this transpired with these individuals lost their lives. I'm unclear as to how many individuals it actually was that lost their life now. 8 children, the wife apparently succumbed to her injuries, and now we find out, or I'm finding out, a girlfriend. He clearly went all the way off of the deep end and looked to delete everyone closest to him. His children, 7 of these children are his. 1 was a family member, whatever. All of these are children, aging from, well, she said, 14 years old down to 1. The narrator says 11 years old. Nevertheless, some of these children were 1 year old, 2 years old, etc. This individual went clearly off of the deep end, and then he lost his life in the process of it all. So many lives lost here, an unspeakable tragedy.
To understand that morning, you have to understand Shamar Elkins, or at least who people thought Shamar Elkins was. He was 31 years old, born in Shreveport, raised in Shreveport, known all over Shreveport. From 2013 to 2020, he wore the uniform of the Louisiana Army National Guard. His job titles sound important on paper: Signal Support System Specialist, Fire Support Specialist. He never got deployed overseas. He left the Guard as a private, no medals, no combat record. But he wore that uniform for 7 years, and to the people around him, that meant something. That meant discipline. That meant a man who could be counted on. He was a father 7 times over, 3 boys, 5 girls. His life on paper looked full. Church on Sunday, birthdays, school pickups, a house with children's voices in every room. His wife was the mother of most of those kids. Other children came from other relationships, the Pughs, the Snows, the Elkins kids, different last names, but all of them born from him. Cousins in and out of the house. A whole web of little lives tied to this one man. Now the cracks were there. They'd always been there. Back in 2019, Shamar did something that should have been a red flag the size of a highway billboard. He fired a handgun near Caddo Magnet High School. Children were outside. Bullets were going off in the direction of a school full of kids. You'd think that kind of thing would get a man put away. It didn't. He pleaded guilty to illegal use of weapons. The judge gave him 18 months of probation. No prison, no jail, no mandatory treatment. He walked out of that courtroom, went back to his life, and kept raising his children. Let that sit for a second. A man discharged a firearm near a school, and the system looked at him and said, "Stay out of trouble for a year and a half and we'll call it even." 7 years later, those same hands would be used to end 8 young lives. On social media, the picture he painted was a beautiful one. A few weeks before the killings, he posted an Easter photo. Him and his children all dressed up, fresh out of church, Sunday best, little bow ties, little dresses, smiles lined up across the couch. A man who looked blessed. Hours before the shooting, he posted again. This time about taking his oldest daughter on what he called a daddy-daughter date, a burger spot, just the two of them, the kind of post you scroll past 100 times a day and never think twice about. That little girl had no idea, neither did the internet. But 10 days before that morning, something had shifted. A post went up that hit different. Something about mental health. Something about praying. And not a clear cry for help. Not something you could screenshot and send to 911. Just a man who sounded tired, sounded low. Sounded like he was carrying something heavy and didn't know where to put it down. People scrolled past it. What most of the world didn't see was the rest of it.
Okay, so this is, I guess they're not about to say or read this, but for those who may not be able to read it, let me read this. This is the suspect who is now dead, as we know, Shamar Elkins. This was posted on April 9th, 10 days then before this unspeakable tragedy. And it reads, "Dear God, today I ask you to help me guard my mind and my emotions. When negativity arises, remind me to say it does not belong to me in the name of Jesus. Help me to remember that there is power in your name and that every force not from you must flee. When depression tries to settle in, when anger rises, when anxiety or panic comes, give me the awareness to recognize what is not from you and the strength to reject it immediately in the name of Jesus. Fill me with your peace, your joy, and your clarity, and teach me to replace every negative thought with your truth. Strengthen my mind so I can stand firm and not be overtaken by what I feel. I choose to walk in freedom, knowing I am covered, protected, and held by you. In Jesus' name, amen." Sicko. So I don't know. I guess they're going to say he was reaching out for help. He didn't try hard enough.
Shamar and his wife were separating. There was a court date coming up. Custody, the formal end of a life they had built together. Anybody who has ever been through a breakup with children involved knows how that kind of timeline works on a person. It winds you up. It backs you into corners of yourself you didn't know existed. For some people, separation is a paperwork process. For others, it becomes a pressure cooker with no release valve. Shamar Elkins was in that pressure cooker. Cedar Grove, where this all happened, I will tell you everything about Shreveport if you know how to read a neighborhood.
Pressure cooker my behind. It has nothing to do with him being in a pressure cooker. Many individuals get divorced. Many individuals have problems in their relationship and break up and still are fathers or mothers to their children. They don't delete their children. He has children from different relationships, not all from this one wife. And somehow all of the children were together, even though they have different mothers, asleep in this home. This man goes in here and does this unspeakable stuff. I mean, he clearly lost his mind and he's not sane. Wonder if there were many red flags or not. I mean, there were some. He reached out for some sort of help, I suppose, there on April 9th with that post. But that can also just be construed as someone making a post about the Lord. Oftentimes, there are no red flags, no warning signs with some of these individuals who just apparently go off of the deep end. But sometimes there are. Nevertheless, no one would think that he would do something like this, even if there are warning signs or red flags about some of his behaviors, such as shooting that weapon in the air near a school or what have you, and receiving probation. The system is indeed broke in many ways. But this is sickening.
In class, quiet, families that have been on the same block since the 90s. One man who lives on that same street, 71 years old, said he's lived there since 1991 and never in his life heard of anything like what happened. Never. Not on that block. Houses sit close together in Cedar Grove. Kids run between yards. You know which car belongs to which neighbor. You hear the music, you hear the dogs, you hear when something isn't right. On the night of April 18th, going into the 19th, that block was doing what every American neighborhood does on a Saturday night. Lights went off one by one. Kids got tucked in. Parents finished their shifts and their dinners and their bedtime stories. Inside that one house on West 79th Street, 8 children were settling in. Soraya Snow, 11 years old, the oldest, the helper. Marcaden Pugh, 10. Layla Pugh, 7. Kayla Pugh and Kadarian Snow, both 6. Braylon Snow and Shayla Elkins, both 5. And the baby of the bunch, Jayla Elkins, just 3 years old. 3 years old, a toddler. Still learning her full sentences. 7 of those babies shared a father. 1 was a cousin. All of them were hours away from being gone. Now, before we get into exactly what happened when the sun came up on that block, do me one favor. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. We tell these stories so that the babies like Jayla and Soraya and Braylon don't become a number. So that the signs nobody caught the first time get caught the next time. Subscribe, share this video with somebody who needs to hear it, and stay with me. Because the next part of this story is the part Shreveport is never going to be able to forget. The last 24 hours of those children's lives looked so normal that nobody could have called it. Nobody. Saturday, April 18th, 2026. Shamar Elkins did what a lot of separated dads try to do when the marriage is falling apart. He leaned into the father thing. Hard. He took his oldest daughter out, just the 2 of them, and he posted about it online. Daddy-daughter date, burger spot, a hug on camera, some smiles, the kind of post you see your cousin put up and double tap without a second thought. That same afternoon, the rest of the children were where they always were on a Saturday, running around the house, watching something on a tablet, arguing over who got to pick the movie. Soraya, the 11-year-old, probably helping the little ones. Jayla, 3 years old, probably underfoot. Normal Saturday stuff. Shamar and his wife were in the middle of splitting up. The court date was coming. Custody, who gets what, who gets the kids when. Every fight you've ever had with a partner when a relationship is dying, they were having. Except with 7 children tying them together. 7 little reasons that separation was never going to be clean. 10 days before that night, Shamar had posted something about his mental health, about needing prayer. The kind of post you see and worry about for a half a second and then scroll past. His friends scrolled past it. His family scrolled past it. Because the man right next to it on the feed was posting pictures of his kids in their Easter outfits. Because the man right next to it was doing daddy-daughter dates. You don't think a man like that is about to snap. You just don't. The court date was hanging over him. The custody battle was real, and somewhere inside that head of his, the head that had worn a uniform for 7 years, the head that had fired shots near a school back in 2019 and got away with probation, the head that was praying online one day and posting burger photos the next. A decision was getting made. Not a crime of passion, not a snap, a decision. Saturday night, the children went to bed. Most of them fell asleep together. Cousins and siblings curled up the way kids do when there's a house full. Their mother was in the home. Their cousin was in the home. Outside, Cedar Grove was doing what it always did on a Saturday night. Cars settled on the street, television shut off. The block went quiet. Nobody on that street had any idea that Shamar Elkins was about to do something Shreveport had never seen before. 5 o'clock in the morning, Sunday, April 19th. Cedar Grove is asleep. The first scene was not on West 79th Street. It was on Harrison Street, at the home where his girlfriend was. According to police, Shamar Elkins went there first. He shot her multiple times, critically. She was still breathing when officers finally got to her, but the rounds he put in her were the kind you have to fight for hours to survive. He left her there, alive, but barely. Then he got in a vehicle and he drove. Harrison Street to the 300 block of West 79th Street, about a quarter mile. 5 minutes at that hour with no traffic. A quarter mile between the 2 women in his life and the 8 children about to die in between. He walked into that house on West 79th. His wife was there, the mother of most of his children. He shot her in the face, and then he kept going. The children were asleep. According to the Shreveport police spokesperson, most of the children appear to have been shot in their sleep, shot in the head, one after another, a small caliber handgun in his hand. 7 little bodies: Jayla, 3, Shayla, 5, Braylon, 5, Kayla, 6, Kadarian, 6, Layla, 7, Markaden, 10, Soraya, 11.
We began with a community grieving after a mass shooting in Louisiana. 10 people were shot in Shreveport, 8 were killed, all of them children. The gunman also dead. Police say the attacks happened at 2 homes. CBS's Jason Allen is there for us tonight with the details. Jason.
Tarika, good evening. People are still filling this Shreveport neighborhood tonight, emotional and upset over this shooting that happened both at this house behind me and another one just up the road. And police told me in the last hour it was a survivor of the shooting who escaped and called them to tell them about it. Just after 6 o'clock this morning, when police got here, they found 10 people had been shot. 8 of them had been killed. And as you mentioned, all 8 of those were children. Police also confirming for me that at least 7 of those 8 children were the children of the shooter, who they identified as Shamar Elkins. After the shooting, police say that Elkins carjacked someone just down the street, got into a pursuit with police, stopped. They say he produced a handgun and police officers shot him there at the scene. Louisiana State Police tonight are also involved in this investigation.
This is a tragic situation, maybe the worst tragic situation we've ever had in Shreveport.
I don't know what people think in the crevices of their mind to want to harm another human being, let alone that of children who have their whole life ahead of them.
The police spokesperson had to stand at a podium.
Well, sickness is what is in their mind. This individual is clearly not all there, not to excuse his actions, because there is no excuse for this. But no sane individual would delete their own children, much less this many children. So there we have it then. 10 individuals were shot. His girlfriend shot his wife in the face. But the 8 individuals who died were all of the children. So I suppose then his wife and girlfriend are still alive. His girlfriend, as we just heard, was still alive when he walked out, went there first, shot her, left her in critical condition, shot her critically, they said, and then jumped in his car and went a quarter of a mile up the street to where everyone else was at, his wife and 8 children. Shot his wife in the face and then went on to the 8 children. And of course, it would add up that the 8 children are the ones that lost their life because, of their stature. They're so small, their bodies can't, their heads, their brain, they can't withstand a bullet like that, and survive it. I mean, of course, some people do, but some don't. They did not. The wife did and the girlfriend did. But obviously they are in bad shape as well, one being shot in the face and the other shot wherever, but in critical condition, the girlfriend. Perhaps we get an update on them and see what's going on with them. But that individual himself is dead too, produced a weapon, carjacked someone. So he's not that insane. He had the presence of mind to try to get away. He had the presence of mind to go from one place to another, go from his girlfriend's place, commit a horrific act, was studious enough to jump in the car and go to another crime scene and commit horrific acts. So, though clearly not all there, he's certainly not necessarily insane or he's not stupid. He had the presence of mind and the wherewithal to try to get away with this dastardly crime. He just did not and ended up losing his worthless life as well. Unfortunate, man. Rest in peace to these children, these sick individuals out here running the street. You don't know who you're with, who you are inviting into your home. You just don't know.
Him later that day and describe what his officers walked into.
This is entirely a domestic incident. So the suspect shot the mother of the child children first, then responded to this location and shot 8 children, 7 of which being his own. There was an additional child at this residence that was not akin to him. However, we're still working on relationships and whose parents for whose. It's a very hectic scene. There's a lot to investigate, a lot to unpack, and we want to do the best we can to come up with a clear timeline, a clear reasoning, even though cases like this, the reasoning will never be fully understood. We were contacted for the shooting. Our officers responded, located the scene, located the 8 individuals, the children that were dead, and they tried to provide aid where they could, but ultimately were unable to save any of them. There was a child that jumped off the roof. We were able to get him to a hospital, and he is expected to survive. There's also 2 adult females that were injured during this mass shooting. They are both in critical condition. We are hopeful that they will survive. One is significantly more critical than the other. So we all keeping their families in our thoughts and prayers.
He didn't reach for poetry. He said the scene was disgusting and evil. He's been a cop a long time. He'd never seen anything like this. One child tried to get out, climbed up onto the roof of the house next door, trying to hide. I'm trying to disappear, trying to be anywhere else on earth. He got shot on that roof, and his little body stayed up there until the sun came up and officers started trying to figure out where everybody was. A teenager, separate from the 8 children killed, was also at the scene that morning. That teenager tried to escape, fell off a roof trying to get away, ended up with non-life-threatening injuries, police said, alive. But that teenager saw and heard things that no human being should ever have to carry, and is going to carry them for the rest of a long life. Right around 6 a.m., the first 911 call came in. Reports of a domestic disturbance in the 300 block of West 79th Street. Officers started rolling toward the address. By the time the first Shreveport police units pulled up, Shamar Elkins was gone. Outside, near the intersection of Linwood Avenue and West 79th, he did the next thing on his list. He carjacked somebody, took the car, drove off into the morning. Behind him, in that house, 7 children were dead in their beds. 1 was dead on a neighbor's roof. 2 women were bleeding out in 2 separate homes. A teenager was on the ground outside. And the first officer to walk through that front door on West 79th Street was about to see something that will be in his nightmares until the day he dies. The scene that greeted officers that morning was not one scene, it was 4. Harrison Street, West 79th Street, the streets in between where a carjacking had happened, and a place still miles away where the ending was still coming. Shreveport police called it an extensive scene unlike anything most of them had ever worked. And Chief Wayne Smith stood at a press conference that morning and told reporters he just did not know what to say. His heart was taken aback. He could not begin to imagine how something like this could happen. The Caddo Parish Coroner's Office moved in. They had 8 children to identify. The job fell, the way it always does in cases like this, to the mothers. 2 mothers had to walk into that building and look at their babies and say the names out loud. Jayla, Shayla, Kayla, Layla, Markaden, Soraya, Kadarian, Braylon. 3 boys, 5 girls, ages 3 to 11. Inside the house, detectives were piecing together the sequence, which room each child had been in, where each shell casing had landed, which doors were touched, which doors were skipped. They determined that the small caliber handgun Shamar Elkins used in most of the shooting wasn't his only weapon that night. When he finally confronted police later that morning, he was holding what officers described as a rifle-style pistol, assault-style, different weapon, heavier firepower. This was not a man who was unprepared. This was a man who walked out of his house that morning with more than one gun on him, knowing exactly what he was about to do. The detectives will spend months trying to answer the question that every grieving person in Shreveport is asking. How? How does a father get to a place where he puts a pistol to his children's heads while they're sleeping? How does a man who posted a daddy-daughter date post on Saturday afternoon end 8 children's lives on Sunday morning? They don't have a clean answer. Nobody ever does. Shamar Elkins never saw a courtroom for this. He never faced a jury, never heard the charges read out loud. After the carjacking, he drove out of Shreveport and into Bossier Parish. Louisiana law enforcement picked up the chase. They knew who he was. They knew what he had just done. When you are hunting a man who just killed 8 children, the chase does not end easy. It ended on the 400 block of Brompton Lane in Bossier City. Officers confronted him. Shots were fired on both sides. When the gunfire stopped, Shamar Elkins was dead in the street. 3 officers had discharged their weapons. At first, the assumption was that police gunfire brought him down. Then came the honest admission from Shreveport police. It is unclear whether Shamar Elkins died at the hands of the officers or whether he ended things himself with that rifle-style pistol. Louisiana State Police was brought in to investigate the shooting of Elkins. That's standard any time officers are involved in a death. Shreveport police said nothing suggests any wrongdoing by the officers who responded. No officers were harmed in that final exchange. That was the one piece of anything close to good news that came out of Cedar Grove that day. And just like that, it was over. The man was dead. The children were dead. 2 women were in hospital beds fighting to survive. A teenager was being treated for injuries from a fall, and a whole city was waking up to a story that none of them were ready to hear. Shreveport had never seen anything like this, not ever. City Councilman Grayson Boucher said that morning that the killings had more than doubled the city's homicides for the entire year. In a single morning, 1 man, 1 house. More than half of the city's murders for all of 2026. Mayor Tom Arsenault called it maybe the worst tragic situation Shreveport had ever had. The House Speaker, whose congressional district covers that neighborhood, called it heartbreaking. The governor of Louisiana said he and his wife were heartbroken. Everybody with a microphone said all the right words. The problem with the right words is that the right words don't bring 8 children back. Here's what this case keeps coming back to. Over 30% of the crimes in Shreveport are domestic. Over 30% of the murders in Shreveport are domestic. Domestic violence is not a private matter. It never was. It began between 2 adults in a failing marriage, and it ended with 8 caskets small enough to be carried by 1 pallbearer each. Shamar Elkins had given us a warning. Back in 2019, he fired a gun near a school full of children. The system gave him 18 months of probation and let him walk. For the next 7 years, he lived in that same community, raised those same children, and kept access to those same kinds of weapons. Nobody went back to check. Nobody.
Yes, perhaps he should have got more time than probation, but I'm not sure that that's the reason that these individuals lost their lives, because he could have got a couple of years in prison or so and did a couple of years in prison for that. But he still would have been home by now, 7 years later, because he didn't injure anyone with the weapon. He was just shooting it in the air, not excusing it. It was not good, but it was not a murder. It was not a robbery. It was not any of this. He was not going to get a long time. The problem is that he had mental problems. Whether he did time in prison, no time in prison, a lot of time in prison, when he gets out, if the mental problems were not addressed, he would still be walking around carrying these same problems. And everyone is still at risk in society with these sort of individuals who have not resolved these inner turmoils that they're faced with, these inner demons. I don't know this individual, don't know him personally, but clearly, again, just the crime itself bespeaks of someone who has immense turmoil and needed help rather quickly. A lot of, but 30% of the crime there is domestic. That's crazy. A lot of individuals there in these domestic situations, and they don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with it or deal with a breakup, deal with an argument or whatever, and tend to magnify or exaggerate a situation, end up doing something like this. This is not normal. This is the only reason that I say that this individual needed some sort of mental help because this is not normal.
He revisited him. Nobody asked if the man who shot near a school might one day be the man who would shoot at a child. He told us 10 days before the killings that something was wrong. He posted about his mental health, about prayer. We all scrolled past it. Not because we didn't care, because there are 10 posts like that in every feed every day, and we have all learned to keep moving. That has to change. If you are in a relationship where the anger is getting louder, where the control is getting tighter, where the threats are starting to feel real, please get out. Call somebody. Tell somebody. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. It doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter.
Yes, no, it doesn't matter. Sometimes the signs are there, and there are some things that can be done to prevent some of these situations, but sometimes there is not. Sometimes, people go off of the deep end and you don't see it coming. And there are no warning signs, and you're just really caught in a bad situation. There's no excuse for anything like this. This is a very sick situation, a very sick individual who committed a very sick crime. The outrage, you can only imagine what the mother must be going through. The wife having been shot in the face, and then, of course, receiving the news that all of her children, the ones that were hers and the ones that were not, whatever, all of her children have lost their lives to this individual, have been in the most brutal way. She's probably blaming herself for having this individual around or whatever, but she was, of course, trying to get a divorce or They were in the midst of a breakup. This perhaps is what prompted some of this. These individuals don't know how to move on. Move on with your life. Move on. If you can't move on and end up doing something so sick as this, then yeah, I'm going to have to conclude that you have some sort of problem, some sort of mental problem. You're lacking the mental capacity to deal with life's challenges. To take it out on 8 children is just unthinkable and unforgivable. But again, as we know, as we just seen, this individual ended up losing his life as well, carjacking someone, pulled out another gun, so he was ready. So I keep saying that he's not, or that he's mentally ill, insane, if you will. But I'm not so sure, because constantly now it seems like he has the capacity to make decisions. He made the decision to carjack someone, to flee the scene, to get away from the situation. He did not take himself out, at least not right then and there, or stand there and shoot it out with the police. He carjacked someone, got in the car, had another kind of gun there in the car, then the murder weapon, another gun. So he came fully prepared. He had backup weapons in case this one jammed, ran out of bullets with this one, whatever. He had something more powerful with him to finish whatever job. Although he did not finish off the wife or the girlfriend, thankfully. He did not unalive them. I'm sure he could have. He just was really, really wanted to. I mean, he was right there. He could have made sure that that was done, but he didn't. I don't know what's in this dude's mind, man. But he had the wherewithal to carjack a car and to shoot it out with the police. So I don't know how crazy he was. He was trying to get away. And then perhaps there's at least a possibility that he blanked himself, because the police admitted, we don't know if one of our bullets did it or if he did it to himself. Certainly one of their bullets were going to do it because 3 officers fired at him. And when they're in that sort of situation, they know that he just took 8 lives. He's armed and extremely dangerous and already shooting at them. They're unloading. They Swiss cheesed him. He had all kind of holes in him for sure. Nevertheless, an unspeakable, diabolical tragedy there. Rest in peace to all of those children. And hopefully the wife and girlfriend are able to recover, and that the teen who jumped off the roof is able to recover mentally moving forward at some point. Going to need a lot of therapy. Stay safe and stay free, people.